All right, today is Thursday, day 149. It is April 30th, and we are on to chapter 18. There are only 22 chapters in this book, so that means next week we're going to be finishing up. And I'm so excited about that. So, this week we are moving on. So, now, if you remember from yesterday, they had a few conflicts. They got into a conflict with those kids. Then they got into a conflict with Krusty, but they were able to escape. And now they're still on their adventure trying to find DOA entrance to the underworld so that they can meet with Hades. So today we are going to see what that looks like. There are still going to be a few conflicts, so I still want you to be identifying those conflicts that you see while you're reading, but we're really going to be working on character traits. We haven't talked about this in a while. So remember, a character trait is a word you use to describe a character's personality. So you have to look at their thoughts, their words, and their actions, and that's how you make an inference about what their personality is like. Are they nice? Are they evil? Are they outgoing? Are they funny? Are they lonely? Like, what are those words that you want? Shy, words that you want to use to describe them. So the way you do that is you first think about their thoughts, words, and actions in the story. Then you ask yourself, what do those thoughts, words, and actions tell you about their personality? Somebody who's making jokes, you know they're funny. Somebody who is always going out of their way to help somebody else, are as helpful or thoughtful or kind. And then you want to find your evidence to support your answer. So, without further ado, let's get started. We are on chapter 18. Annabeth does obedience school. So, obedience school is like a school that you would send a pet to. All right, let's keep going. We stood in the shadows of Valencia Boulevard, looking up at the gold letters etched in black marble. DOA Recording Studios. Underneath, stenciled on the glass doors, no solicitors, no loitering, no living. It was almost midnight, but the lobby was brightly lit and full of people. Behind the security desk sat a tough-looking guard with sunglasses and an earpiece. I turned to my friends. Okay, you remember the plan. The plan? Grover gulped. Yeah, I love the plan. Annabeth said, what happens if the plan doesn't work? Don't think negative. Right, she said. We're entering the land of the dead, and I shouldn't think negative. I took the pearls out of my pocket, the 3 milky spheres that the Nereid had given me in Santa Monica. They didn't seem like much of a backup in case something went wrong. Annabeth put her hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Percy. You're right. We'll make it. It'll be fine. She gave Grover a nudge. Oh, right, he chimed in. We got this far. We'll find the Master Bolt and save your mom. No problem. I looked at them both. They felt really grateful. Only a few minutes before, I'd almost gotten them stretched to death on deluxe waterbeds, and now they were trying to be brave for my sake, trying to make me feel better. I slipped the pearls back in my pocket. Let's whoop some underworld butt. We walked inside the DOA lobby. Music played softly on the hidden speakers. The carpet and walls were steel gray. This is supposed to be music. Pencil cactuses grew in the corners like skeleton hands. The furniture was black leather, and every seat was taken. There were people sitting on couches, people standing up, people staring out windows or waiting for the elevator. Nobody moved or talked or did much of anything. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see them all just fine. But if I focused on any one of them in particular, they started looking transparent. I could see right through their bodies. The security's desk was raised podium, so we had to look up at him. He was tall and elegant, with chocolate-colored skin and bleached blonde hair, shaved military style. He wore tortoiseshell shades and a silk Italian suit and matched his hair. A black rose was pinned to the lapel under the silver name tag. I read the name tag, then looked at him in bewilderment. Your name is Chiron? He leaned across the desk. I couldn't see anything in the glass except for my own reflection, but his smile was sweet and cold, like a python's, right before he eats you. What a precious young lad! He had a strange accent, British, maybe, but also as if he had learned English as a second language. Tell me, mate, Do you like a centaur? Do I look like a centaur? No. Sir, he added smoothly. Sir, I said. He pinched the name tag and ran his fingers along the letters. Can you read this, mate? It says Charon. Say it with me. Charon. Charon. Amazing. Now, Mr. Charon. Mr. Charon, I said. Well done. He sat back. I hate being confused with the old horseman. And now, how may I help you, little dead ones? His question caught in my stomach like a fastball. I looked at Annabeth for support. We want to go to the underworld, she said. Charon's mouth twitched. Well, that's refreshing. It is? She asked. Straightforward and honest. No screaming, no, there must be a mistake, Mr. Charon. He looked over. How did you die, then? I nudged Grover. Oh, he said, drowned in a bathtub. All three of you? Charon asked. We nodded. Big bathtub. Charon looked mildly impressed. I don't suppose you have coins for passage. Normally with adults, you see, I could charge American Express or add the ferry price to your last cable bill. But with children, alas, you never die prepared. Suppose you'll take a seat for a few centuries. Oh, but we have coins. I set 3 golden drachmas on the counter, part of the stash I'd found in the Krusty's front office desk. Well now, Charon moistened his lips. Real drachmas. Real golden drachmas. I haven't seen these in... His fingers hovered greedily over the coins. We were so close. Then Charon looked at me. That cold stare behind his glasses seemed to bore a hole through my chest. Here now, he said, you couldn't read my name correctly. Are you dyslexic, lad? No, I said. I'm dead. Charon leaned forward and took a sniff. You're not dead. I should have known. You're godlings. We have to get to the underworld, I insisted. Charon made a growling sound deep in his throat. Immediately, all the people in the waiting room got up and started pacing, agitated, lighting cigarettes, running hands through the air, or checking their wristwatches. Leave while you can, Chiron told us. I'll just take these and forget I saw you. He started to go for the coins, but I snatched them back. No service, no tip. I tried to sound braver than I felt. Charon growled again, a deep, blood-chilling sound. The spirits of the dead started pounding on the elevator doors. It's a shame, too, I sighed. We had more to offer. I held up the entire bag of Krusty's stash. I took out a fistful of drachmas and let the coins spill through my fingers. Charon's growl changed into something more like a lion's purr. Do you think I can be bought, godling? Just out of curiosity. How much you got there? A lot, I said. I bet Hades doesn't pay you well enough for such hard work. Oh, you don't know the half of it. How would you like to babysit these spirits all day? Always, please don't let me be dead, or please let me across for free. I haven't had a pay raise in 3,000 years. Do you imagine suits like this come cheap? You deserve better, I agreed. A little appreciation, respect, good pay. With each word, I stacked another gold coin on the counter. Charon glanced down at his silk Italian jacket, as if imagining himself in something even better. I must say, lad, you're making some sense now. Just a little. I stacked another few coins. I could mention a pay raise while I'm talking to Hades. He sighed. The boat's almost full anyway. I might as well add you 3 and be off. He stood, scooped up the money and said, Come along. We pushed through the crowd of waiting spirits who started grabbing at our clothes like wind, their voices whispering things I couldn't make out. Charon shoved them out of the way, grumbling, freeloaders. Pause. So, we just saw Percy doing a lot in that part of the story. So I want us to be thinking about a character trait that we would use to describe Percy from this section. So what I'm going to do is highlight this whole section. So from like right here. All the way down to like right there. Just so you remember where I'm looking at for that section. So this section is what I'm looking at. So the question says, based on his thoughts, words, and actions, what character trait best, sorry, this should say best, I can't believe I did this, best describes Percy? In the beginning of this chapter, highlighting in yellow. Is he determined? Is he thoughtful? Is he athletic? Or is he nasty? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about what he was doing in this part of the story. So when I think down here, he was trying to work with Chiron to make sure they could get to the underworld. So when Karen said no, he didn't give up. He kept thinking of different things that he could use to bribe him, really, to take them to the underworld, because he wants to get to the underworld so bad, so that he can save his mother and all these different things. So let's go back up. So when I think about those were like what he said and what he did. So when I think about that, it doesn't show me that he's athletic or nasty. So I'm going to for sure get rid of those two. Now I want to think, does it show me that he's determined or that he's thoughtful? So thoughtful would be like doing things to help other people. Then he is helping Karen, but for a reason. He's helping Karen because he wants to get to the underworld. He's determined to get there. So what I would say about him is he is determined. He's a determined person. He works hard. So determined, another word for determined would be like hardworking or someone who doesn't give up, right? So that is what I would say to describe him. So A is the correct answer. I'm going to unhighlight these so you can see. And then the evidence I would use is there's two things. There his words. So what I would use is, so when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about his words mostly. So his words show me that he's determined or insistent. We have to get to the underworld, I insisted. I snatched them back. No service, no tip. I tried to sound braver than I felt. So those are his words, and a little bit his thoughts, like right here where he said, I tried to sound braver than I felt. He's using those to show that his words show us that he's determined to get there, that he's not going to give up, and that he's going to work his hardest to get there. So we're going to keep reading, and you're going to be thinking now, I want to make sure you notice this about Annabeth, okay? Because what I've seen some people do is they think about the same person as up here. This was about Percy. We're now going to be looking about Annabeth. And again, I'll highlight that part in orange. So I'll highlight that part in orange so you know where to look when we get to that. So let's go down back to where we were and let's pick up where we left off. So they're heading down to the underworld. So we're going to have to see what happens when they get down there because this is getting really interesting. All right. He escorted us to the elevator, which was already crowded with souls of the dead, each one holding a green boarding pass. Karen grabbed two spirits who were trying to get on with us and pushed them back into the lobby. Right. Now, no one get any ideas while I'm gone, he announced in the waiting room. And if anyone moves the dial off my easy listening station again, I'll make sure that you're here for another 1,000 years. Understand? He shut the doors. He put the key card into the slot in the elevator panel, and we started to descend. What happens to the spirits waiting in the lobby? Annabeth asked. Nothing, Karen said. For how long? Forever, or until I'm feeling generous. Oh, she said. That's fair. Karen raised his eyebrow. Whoever said death was fair, young miss? Wait until it's your turn. You'll die soon enough where you're going. We'll get out alive, I said. Ha! I got a sudden dizzy feeling. We weren't going down anymore, but forward. The air turned misty. Spirits around me started changing shape. Their modern clothes flickered, turning into gray hooded robes. The floor on the elevator began swaying. I blinked hard. When I opened my eyes, Charon's creamy Italian soup had been replaced by a long black robe. His tortoiseshell glasses were gone. Where his eyes should have been, were empty sockets, like Aries' eyes. Except Charon's were totally dark, full of night and death and despair. He saw me looking and he said, "Well?" "Nothing," I managed. I thought he was grinning, but that wasn't it. The flesh of his face was becoming transparent, letting me see straight through into his skull. The floor kept swaying. Grover said, "I think I'm getting seasick." When I blinked again, the elevator wasn't an elevator anymore. We were standing in a wooden barge. Charon was pulling us across a dark, oily river, swirling with bones, dead fish, and other stranger things. Plastic dolls, crushed carnations, soggy diplomas with gilt edges. "The river Styx," Annabeth murmured. "It's so polluted," Charon said. "For thousands of years, you humans have been throwing in everything as you come across hopes, dreams, wishes that never came true. Irresponsible waste management, if you ask me." So I want you to be thinking about the setting right now because it's creating a mood. So it's really gross and dirty. There's wasted dreams and things like that all floating around. It's pretty sad. That's the mood that I'm feeling. Let's keep going and see if there's anything else. Mist curled off the filthy water. Above us, almost lost in the gloom, was a ceiling of stalactites. Ahead, the far shore glimmered with greenish light, the color of poison. Panic closed up my throat. What was I doing here? These people around me, they were dead. Annabeth grabbed hold of my hand. Under normal circumstances, this would have embarrassed me, but I understood how she felt. She wanted reassurance that somebody else was alive on this boat. I found myself muttering a prayer, though I wasn't quite sure who I was praying to. Down here, only one God mattered, and he was the one I had come to confront. The shoreline of the underworld came into view. Craggy rocks and black volcanic sand stretched inland about 100 yards to the base of a stone wall, which marched off in either direction as far as we could see. A sound came from somewhere nearby the green gloom, echoing off the stones, the howl of a large animal. "Old Three-Faced is hungry," Charon said. His smile turned skeletal in the greenish light. "Bad luck for you, godlings." The bottom of our boat slid onto the black sand. The dead began to disembark. A woman holding a little girl's hand, an old man and an old woman hobbling along arm in arm. A boy, no older than I was, shuffling silently along his gray robe. Charon said, "I'd wish you good luck, mate, but there isn't any down here. Mind you, don't forget to mention my pay raise." He counted our golden coins into his pouch, then took up his pole. He warbled something that sounded like a Barry Manilow song as he ferried the empty barge back across the river. We followed the spirits up a well-worn path. So pause. The setting is now the underworld. So you can remember up here it says that they're kind of like there's a three-faced hungry creature, so that sounds a little bit scary. The shore has black sand and a high stone wall. There's like that dirty, polluted river. So it's kind of eerie and scary down here. Everybody's wearing gray robes, so you can kind of be imagining this in your head. So now they're going to go and try to see what they can figure out, but they might come across some problems as they're doing it. I'm not sure what I was expecting. Pearly gates or big black portcullis or something, but the entrance to the underworld looked like a cross between airport security and the Jersey Turnpike. There were 3 separate entrances under one huge black archway that said, "You are now entering Erebus." Each entrance had a pass-through metal detector with security cameras mounted on top. Beyond this were toll booths, manned by black-robed ghouls like Charon. The howling of the hungry animal was really loud now, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. The three-headed dog, Cerberus, who was supposed to guard Hades' door, was nowhere to be seen. The dad queued up in 3 lines. 2 marked attendant on duty, and 1 marked easy death. The easy death line was moving right along. The other 2 were crawling. What do you figure? I asked Annabeth. The fast line must go straight to Asphodel Fields, she said. No contest. They don't want to risk judgment from the court because it might go against them. There's a court for dead people? Yeah, 3 judges. They switch around who sits on the bench. King Minos, Thomas Jefferson, Shakespeare, people like that. Sometimes they look at a life and decide if the person needs a special reward. The fields of Elysium, sometimes they decide on punishment. But most people, well, they just lived. Nothing special, good or bad. So they go to Asphodel Fields. And do what? Grover said. Imagine standing in a wheat field in Kansas, forever. Harsh, I said. Not as harsh as that, Grover muttered. Look. A couple of black-robed ghouls had pulled aside one spirit and were frisking him at security desk. The face of the dead man looked vaguely familiar. He's that preacher who made the news, remember? Grover asked. Oh, yeah. I did remember now. We'd seen him on TV a couple of times at the Yancey Academy dorm. He was this annoying televangelist from upstate New York who'd raised millions of dollars for orphanages, then got caught spending the money on stuff for his mansion, like gold-plated toilet seats and an indoor putt-putt golf course. He died in a police chase when his Lamborghini for the Lord went off a cliff. I said, what are they doing to him? Special punishment from Hades, Grover guessed. The really bad people get this personal attention as soon as they arrive. The kindly ones will set up an internal torture for him. The thought of the Furies made me shudder. I realized I was in their home territory now. Old Mrs. Dodds would be licking her lips with anticipation. But if he's a preacher, I said, and he believes in a different hell, Grover shrugged. Who says he's seeing this place the way we're seeing it? Humans see what they want to see. You're very stubborn, persistent that way. We got closer to the gates. The howling was so loud now, it shook the ground at my feet. But I still couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Then, about 50 feet in front of us, the green mist shimmered. Standing just where the path split into 3 lanes was an enormous, shadowy monster. I hadn't seen it before because it was half transparent, like the dead. Until it moved, it blended with whatever was behind it. Only its eyes and teeth looked solid, and it was staring straight at me. My jaw hung open. All I could think to say was, he's a Rottweiler. I'd imagined Cerberus to be a big black mastiff, but he was obviously a purebred Rottweiler, except, of course, that he was twice the size of a woolly mammoth, mostly invisible, and had 3 heads. The dead walked right up to him, no fear at all. The attendant on duty lines parted on either side of him. The easy death spirits walked right between his front paws and under his belly, which they could do without even crouching. I'm starting to see him better, I muttered. Why is that? I think, Annabeth moistened her lips, I'm afraid it's because we're getting closer to being dead. The dog's middle head craned toward us. It sniffed the air and growled. It can smell the living, I said. But that's okay, Grover said, trembling next to me, because we have a plan. Right, Annabeth said. I'd never heard her voice sound quite so small. A plan. We moved toward the monster. The middle head snarled at us, then barked so loud my eyeballs rattled. Can you understand it? I asked Grover. Oh, yeah, he said. I can understand it. What's it saying? I don't think humans have 4-letter words that translate exactly. I took the big stick out of my backpack, a bedpost I'd broken off Krusty's Safari Deluxe floor model. I held it up and tried to channel happy dog thoughts towards Cerberus. Apollo commercials, cute little puppies, fire hydrants. I tried to smile like I wasn't about to die. Hey, big fella, I called up. I bet they don't play with you much. Growl. Good boy, I said weakly. I waved the stick. The dog's middle head followed the movement. The other two heads trained their eyes on me, completely ignoring the spirits. I had Cerberus' undivided attention. I wasn't sure that was a good thing. Fetch! I threw the stick into the gloom, a good, solid throw. I heard it go kerploosh in the river Styx. Cerberus glared at me, unimpressed. His eyes were baleful and cold. So much for plan. Cerberus was now making a new kind of growl, deeper down in his three throats. Grover said. Percy? Yeah? I just thought you'd want to know. Yeah? Cerberus? He says we've got 10 seconds to pray to the god for our choice. After that, well, he's hungry. Wait, Annabeth said. She started rifling through her pack. Uh-oh, I thought. So pause. Obviously, here's a conflict. What is the conflict? I want you to think about it in your head. Who is there a conflict with? Percy, Grover, Annabeth versus Cerberus. So they're trying to pass Cerberus to get to Hades, but Cerberus is not going to let them pass, and he's hungry. So they've got to think of a solution. So again, we'll start here. Wait, Annabeth said. She started rifling through her pack. Uh-oh, I thought. 5 seconds, Grover said. Do we run now? Annabeth produced a red rubber ball, the size of a grapefruit. It was labeled Waterland, Denver, Colorado. Before I could stop her, she raised the ball and marched straight up to Cerberus. She shouted, See the ball? You want the ball? Cerberus, sit. Cerberus looked stunned as we were. All three of his heads cocked sideways, 6 nostrils dilated. Like that. Sit, Annabeth called again. I was sure that at any moment she would become the world's largest milk-bone dog biscuit. But instead, Cerberus licked his 3 sets of lips, shifted his haunches, and sat, immediately crushing a dozen spirits who had been passing underneath him in the easy death line. The spirits made muffled hisses as they dissipated like the air let out of tires. Annabeth said, Good boy. She threw Cerberus the ball. He caught it in the middle of his mouth. It was barely big enough for him to chew. And then the other head started snapping at the middle, trying to get to the new toy. Drop it, Annabeth ordered. Cerberus' head stopped fighting and looked at her. The ball was wedged between 2 of its teeth and tiny pieces of gum. He made a loud, scary whimper and dropped the ball, now slimy and bitten nearly in half, at Annabeth's feet. Good boy. She picked up the ball, ignoring the monster spit all over it. She turned towards us. Go now. Easy death line. It's faster. I said, But now, she ordered, in the same tone she was using on the dog. Grover and I inched forward warily. Cerberus started to growl. Stay, Annabeth ordered the monster. If you want the ball, stay. Cerberus whimpered, and he stayed where he was. What about you? I asked Annabeth as we passed her. I know what I'm doing, Percy, she muttered. At least, I'm pretty sure. Grover and I walked between the monster's legs. Please, Annabeth, I prayed. Don't let him sit again. We made it through. Cerberus wasn't any less scary looking from the back. Annabeth said, Good dog. She held up the tattered red ball and probably came to the same conclusion I did. If she rewarded Cerberus, there'd be nothing left for another trick. She threw the ball anyway. The monster's left mouth immediately snatched it up, only to be attacked by the middle head, while the right head moaned in protest. While the monster was distracted, Annabeth walked briskly under its belly and joined us at the metal detector. How did you do that? I asked her, amazed. Obedience school, she said breathlessly. I was so surprised to see that there were tears in her eyes. When I was little at my dad's house, we had a Doberman. Never mind that, Grover said, tugging at my shirt. Come on. We were about to bolt through the easy death line when Cerberus moaned pitifully from all 3 mouths. Annabeth stopped. She turned to face the dog, which had done a 180 to look at us. Cerberus panted expectantly, the tiny ball in pieces, in a puddle of drool at its feet. Good boy, Annabeth said, but her voice sounded melancholy and uncertain. The monster's head turned sideways, as if worried about her. I'll bring you another ball soon, Annabeth promised faintly. Would you like that? The monster whimpered. I didn't need to speak dog to know Cerberus was still waiting for the ball. Good dog. I'll come visit you soon. I promise. Annabeth turned to us. Let's go. Grover and I pushed through the metal detector, which immediately screamed and set off flashing red lights. Unauthorized possessions. Magic detected. Cerberus started to bark. We burst through the easy desk gate, which started even more alarms blaring, and raced into the underworld. A few minutes later, we were hiding, out of breath, in a rotten trunk of immense black tree as the security ghouls scuttled past, yelling for backup from the Furies. Grover murmured, Well, Percy, what have we learned today? That three-headed dogs prefer red rubber balls over sticks? No, Grover told me. We've learned that your plans really, really bite. I wasn't sure about that. I thought maybe Annabeth and I had both had the right idea. Even here in the underworld, everybody, even monsters, needed a little attention once in a while. I thought about that as we waited for the ghouls to pass. I pretended not to see Annabeth wipe a tear from her cheek as she listened to the mournful keening of Cerberus in the distance, longing for his new friend. All right, so now we're going to talk about Annabeth. So I'm going to highlight a section of here so that this is where you're going to go back. So I'm going to highlight this in orange, okay? And this is where I want you to look for your answer, okay? So it's not a huge section. So you're going to look for what thoughts, based on her thoughts, words, and actions, what character trait best describes Annabeth at the end of this chapter. So in the orange section, is she silly, bossy, brave, or odd? Then I want you to type your answer in here and find your evidence. Make sure you type your evidence in here too, okay? All right. I will see you tomorrow, and we'll be reading chapter 19. Bye.